Hello everybody, welcome back. Today we have a very important stream. We're going to be covering Ethereum as it just had a very crucial close and we need to cover it. We're gonna follow the same format as we did in our Bitcoin video that we posted yesterday. And we need to cover a few things. We're going to start off by talking about some of the monthly price levels that we need to keep our eyes on for both the short term and the long term, and then we're going to dive into some trend lines, the line chart, and also some fib levels that will show us exactly where the Ethereum price is going in the future. So you guys do not want to miss out on that, but please keep in mind that none of this is financial advice. These are only my own opinions and speculative ideas in the crypto market, so please always do your own research before investing or trading. With that being said, let's go ahead and start pointing out some of these key price levels on the monthly chart. So the first one is obviously going to be right here at around $1,120, so $1,120, as it was our candle body close on our candle that we made the high of $1,440. The next level that we see bunch of confluence at is around this $850 level. We had a wick up here, a candle body close here, a candle body open here, and then another wick up to this level. The next one would be around the $730 price level. The next one would be around the $670 price level. The next one would be around $575. Although we could also put one around the $630 level, even though I do not think it's as important at the current moment. But for right now, let's go ahead, now that we know these, just keep these price levels in your mind, because whenever we start doing the fib analysis, you'll see how each one of these levels does play a key role. But for now, we're just going to take these off and mainly focus on where we're at right now and the current upside and downside targets on the monthly. So I'm going to outline a few more key levels here around 515, around 450. Let me extend this a little bit farther. And then we have one around 430. And then we have another one around 390. And we have another one around 360. And then another one around the $300 price level. And we could even include these wicks as well as the candle bodies over here. Let's move this to right here, and that is around the $260 level. We could even include the $280 level in. Let's go ahead and do that just to see all the price levels and see which ones are more important than the other ones. And then finally, the last one would be about right here around the $230 level. So currently where we're at, around $345, our price targets to the upside that currently, because we're below, they could act as new resistance, but eventually will be flipped into new support. And then we're going to also cover the buy levels where you're going to want to be buying in on Ethereum so you don't miss out on the next run upside down here. So to begin, we're at $345. Our levels to the upside are 360, 390, 430, 450, 515, and about 570 to 580 respectively. You guys should write those down and remember those levels, because as this video goes on, you'll see how those are extremely crucial levels. And then to the downside, some support levels we are looking at is the $300 level, about 280, 260, and then 230. So with that being said, let's hop into a chart. Let's start drawing some trend lines and seeing where these price levels are going to take us to. All right, so let's begin with the weekly time frame for Ethereum. I already have some key trend lines drawn, and we're going to be drawing a lot more. We're also going to be taking a look at the RSI on the weekly and seeing some of the trend lines that we have within our strength index and where we could be looking to go on the RSI as well as with price action in the next couple of weeks. So to begin, let's look all the way back in 2017 and see how some of these levels that have been playing out in the charts even to this day on the weekly had confluence back in 2017 as well, whenever we created our all-time highs for both Bitcoin, Ethereum, and most of the altcoins. So we can see that beginning this trend line was our blast off point with this candle body close right here. And really, it's whenever we made our first huge high for Ethereum, where we went from about $7, $8 all the way up to $400. And then right whenever we made, and exactly we topped out at this $420 level. And this is an extremely key level, and I'll be showing you guys exactly why later on in the video. But just keep this level in mind. It's where we created basically our first high. And then we fell all the way down to about $150, which is, let's see, just for example, from our high, I mean, this was about a 65% drop in a matter of just about 4 weeks here. And then we had candle body support exactly at this level, and that was the blast off point to go from 150 all the way up to our high of about 1440, over 800% in, I believe this was a period of about 180 days that this happened. And then once we did create our high, look, we fell all the way back down 75%. We fell 75% to this key level. And look, this makes perfect sense doing technical analysis as well. This, whenever we created our high right here around $400 and closed below this level, this was our old resistance being flipped into new support right here. We tried to hold this level around $360 as our new support level. And I mean, in a matter of about 5 weeks after we touched this level, we went up 130% in 5 weeks after finding support where our old resistance was. But we did again get rejected around the $830 price level, which, if you remember at the beginning of the video, one of the key monthly levels I had outlined was this $830 level. So it is very crucial. And then we fell all the way back down. And look at where we tried to hold it first. We're going to remove this line. And whenever we fell, we tried to hold support for 3 weeks on this trend line. We kept candle body closed above here, candle body closed above here, and candle body closed above here. But then this, whenever we broke this level, was the indicator that we were going lower. And then we tried to hold on to this trend line, which I'll get into in just a second. But to keep focusing on this blue trend line that I have here, we candle body closed below it, flipping it from support like we had here and here into new resistance. And you can see exactly how price has played out so far. Our two highs we've had since all this price action over here have been exactly at that trend line. We had the first one, let's see where this price was exactly. So we topped out almost exactly at 367. And then let's see how far this drop was from here all the way to the bottom. Again, about another 75% drop. Absolutely heinous, but at the same time, it was a perfect sell-off, because if we look, we created a double bottom here, which was exactly perfect for us to create a massive level of support to have a rally to the upside. And if we look at it this way, we had our first bottom here, all the way where we dropped from 1,400 all the way down to $80, before then rallying all the way up to our key trend line here around $367, and then falling again another 75%. I'm almost sure it was exactly 75%. Yeah, look at that, almost exactly 75% to that key level. And we created our double bottom. And then what happened? We rallied all the way back up again, and then had our new high. And this new high was around $490. And I mean, again, from getting that double bottom, we had about a 437% increase. And this happened all in a matter of about 6 months. And look exactly where we wicked up to. We wicked up exactly to that trend line, and then candle closed all these candles below this trend line. So now let's get into what's so crucial about this trend line. And I guarantee you, if we extend it, something like this, and keep going, wow! Even whenever we had the scam wick right here, it wicked all the way down exactly to this level. Tested it there, and then look at what happened. So first, whenever we lost our support from this trend line, we fell down exactly to this trend line. And just for simplicity, let's go ahead and make that black again and change the color of this one so we know exactly what we're talking about. So you can see this is the trend line where on this level, where in a single week we had a drop from about $365 all the way to $13. Do not know what happened on this candle, but these were the Wild West days of crypto. Absolutely insane price action, because in the next candle we were already back from our low of $13 back to in the 300s. I mean, crazy volatile moves back here in 2017. But back to this trend line, you can see we wicked down exactly to it. And then once we lost the support of this trend line, we fell down exactly to this one, held it as support before breaking below and creating our first bottom here at around $80 before going up to 367. This is where we created our first macro higher low from our times all the way back here in the couple dollar range for Ethereum. And then look, at first we came up, we tested this trend line as resistance because we lost our support and fell below it. We tested it as resistance, were able to break above it briefly and hold it as support for about 2 weeks. First, our candle that made the high with the wick up to this trend line, we held it as support, and we held it as support for this week. But then we closed below and we fell all the way back down, creating our second double bottom, giving us the signal that we were about to have a massive rally. And that's exactly what happened, guys. Absolutely crazy. But after creating our second bottom at a low of $90, so about $10 higher, this candle's low was $80.60. So about $10 higher, not a perfect double bottom, but you can see how it's a technical double bottom because we did have the insane rally. And I mean, just this was the perfect buying level. And then look, we rallied all the way up exactly to this trend line again, closed both these candles below this trend line, and then what happened? We came up, we wicked all the way up to our trend line up here as resistance, and then candle body closed below this trend line again, sending us to our trend line that we've made from $90. And you can see the significance of this one as well, because we have one touch point here, and then we have one, two more touch points right here before we had the major blast off. And then look at that, whenever we fell from our next new high, we've just been wicking down to this trend line. So we definitely need to keep an eye on this. This could be forming either a rising wedge, or we could break down, or maybe just have a wick down and a candle body close still above here. We'll have to see what happens, but now that I've pointed out some of these key trend lines and key levels to be watching, let's jump into the line chart and see what this is telling us, because this shows us only the candle closes. And I went ahead and added two key trend lines on this line chart. First, our downward sloping line of resistance, and secondly, our upward sloping line of support. At the current moment, you can see we're kind of in some kind of triangular formation that could be looking to break out, here in the next couple months. For the long-term view of things, if that's what happens, then we could easily come up here and test our new high. But in the short term, we need to find out what are the key levels within this triangle right now. So to start, we can clearly see one of these levels is right here, and this is around the $350 closing level. You can see back here it was resistance, resistance again before we broke above it, flipped it into support, came up, and then this is where we started our downward sloping line of resistance as well, because you can see like even this line, it was a support line originally. Whenever we fell down from our high, we made this trend line support at first before we broke below it, tested it again, and then confirmed it as resistance and have kept it as resistance since then. So now looking at this, we can see this is the first level right here. I would say there's probably three main levels, but this one seems to be the most important for our current trend, because you can even see where we're at right now. We held it as support right here, had a rally back up, and we are currently testing it right now. And in an hour and 20 minutes, we will have our weekly close. So as long as we can hold on to this, we could still come up higher. If we close below this trend line, then we could definitely come down more. And if that was to happen, let's see where this next one would be at. Most likely it'd be about right here, and let's go ahead and extend this out. Yeah, so you can see for this trend line, we tested it, resistance, came up, tested it, support, and then got rejected at our next horizontal ray that we have right here. We fell back down, we came back up, and then we tested it twice more as support before we had our blast off to the all-time high. Now over here, we can see the same kind of thing. We came up, we tested it, resistance, fell down all the way to start our upward sloping line of support here on the line chart. And then again, we tried to hold it right here as support, but fell back below it, tested it as resistance again right here, and then finally was able to break above. So if we did close below this line, most likely we'd want to see, for the bulls, we would definitely want to see all the candle body closes stay above the 290 level, because if that happened, that would still keep us bullish. I mean, really, as long as we're closing anywhere above this bottom sloping trend line, it's bullish. But for the bears term of view, I mean, if we're dropping from 350, down to 150, then people would think it's the end of the world. But really, that's just the liftoff point for the bulls to go ahead and push it higher. But if we're in a bullish scenario, what we want to see if prices to continue to rise, we'd either want to see the weekly candles keep closing above this 350 level, which honestly in an hour it could really confirm that. But if not, then we definitely want to see it hold at the 290 level. And if that doesn't happen, the last line in the sand would probably be about right here, maybe. Let's see what this level would be. And yeah, look at that. That's the $230 level, just like how we mentioned in the beginning of the video as well. And you can see we had a touch point here. We had another touch point here. We had a support touch point here. Resistance. We broke above, flipped it into resistance, and right there at 230 was the last point before we had the major move to the upside to test our resistance trend line as well. So that is something very important to keep in mind. We need to definitely be watching that. But now let's take a look at the RSI, because we really need to see what the strength index is telling us and what trends we have found on the strength index to predict where it could go in the future. So remember, we are on the weekly, so this is in terms of a longer outlook rather than the short term. And what we can see, we do have a resistance point right here. And let's go ahead and make these lines black so it's clear to see. You can see we had resistance here, sell off here, and then we actually broke above briefly to make our high, where look at that, we completely double topped right here at the candle closes, even though we actually did go higher on the actual candlestick chart. But we came down, we bounced off overbought conditions right here, came up, tested that trend line again, and then fell back down. I mean, absolutely perfect. The next level that we see is let's go ahead and draw a line at this level, which would be probably right here ish, around a 50 on the weekly, maybe even a bit higher like that, where you can see it was support flipped into kind of resistance here. And remember, on the RSI, like, these touch points aren't going to be as perfect as on the regular candlestick chart, but you'll see how they still play confluence, because even right here, you can see we had another touch point. And now let's remove that. So we know around the 50 level is a key level on the RSI. We can also see we are making some kind of like upwards channel here, to where we've been bouncing around, back and forth from top to bottom to top to bottom to top. And then now if we came down the bottom, I mean, this is looking like a pretty perfect pattern that could play out. And I'll show you the exact price targets for this. But even, if we came down and we bounced around here for a little bit, we would eventually have the breakout. The same thing would happen to the RSI. If price did drop, then the RSI would drop, and we'd be looking to hold support around a 45 on the weekly RSI. And then, we could come back up, test overbought, or even test this trend line, and then bounce around into for a while until the actual pattern plays out, and we know if it's going to be a breakout or a breakdown, to confirm that. The first thing that you can see, if you were watching this thing back in 2017, even with, even from our top right here all the way to our all-time high, about a 300% difference. Even with that difference, you would have known that we were about to have a monumental crash from this point, looking at our RSI. And the reason is, let me know in the comments right now if you see it, because I'm definitely seeing it right now, and it all comes into play with the RSI. So the first thing, before I start drawing trend lines on this, is we need to take a look at these 2 points. And you can see how we created a lower high. Right here, we were at about a 97 on the RSI where we topped out, and right here we were at about an 89, where we topped out. So if you know what I was calling all the stuff on Bitcoin's chart as well, if we take it from this this top to the next top, look, a monumental higher high was created in price action and in the closings on the line chart, but we still created a lower high on the RSI. And what does that mean? Well, that means, ladies and gentlemen, we created a bearish divergence on the weekly. And whenever you create bearish divergences on the weekly, usually they're pretty serious. I mean, look at this. From the candle close top to the candle close bottom, we had a 94% drop from this whenever we created this bearish divergence on the weekly. A 94% drop. We went all the way from $14.40 all the way down to about $80. Absolutely crazy. But if you were looking at the RSI and you knew about divergences back then in 2017, you would have known this was exactly what was going to happen to Ethereum's chart. And it actually bottomed at the perfect place, as we talked about. But we can tell that this trend line is probably very significant then, if back here it was telling us that we were going to have a 94% drop. And if we extend it, well, look at that. We had our next touch exactly on it here, and then we had resistance again before finally breaking above, confirming it as support, and blasting us off, where we went from $90 all the way to about $490. So crazy. And if we were to extend this, if this line holds as support, if this trend line holds as support, that means on the RSI we could still drop down to about a 47, around the 47-ish level, and then that could be our bounce point to come back into overbought or to start the bull trend again. But right now it is still looking like it could come down and test this. Another level of support is going to be around this 56 level. Right here, you can see it was also our final support touch before we went into overbought conditions. It was support right here. It was resistance right here. Had confluence here, here, and probably over here. Well, we can't even look at this much data back here, but you can see. So this 55 level is a very key level. We know down here around the 47 on the trend line could be a very key level. The next level would probably be somewhere like right here around a 50, because again, we had more support and resistance flips on the RSI. But so keep that in mind. The 50, the 56, and around the 45 to 47 range, let's call it, on the RSI. Watch those levels. But for now, let's draw some more trend lines and see some different things. So the first thing I noticed is we actually have a long-term trend line kind of playing out here. And we actually did. You see how we were in this basically symmetrical triangle on the RSI on the weekly before finally we confirmed the breakout and absolutely skyrocketed. But we were originally in this triangle. And so now, reconfirming this as support, just like how I showed you the 950-day downtrend on Bitcoin and how it could come back down to test its trend line like this around, I believe, could be the low 8,000s, low 9,000s as a retest. We'll have to see whenever price gets around that range, which I'll be keeping you guys all completely updated at all times. So don't worry about that. You guys will know, but predicting future results, I think we could definitely see Ethereum come back down and test something like this as a final support, and then we really start the rally. So there's that trend line. We could also draw maybe a trend line from like here to here. Oh, this is actually a good one, because you can see how we had a touch here. We had a touch point here, a touch point here. We had a touch point here, and almost a little bit of a touch point here before finally, so we were holding it as support, and then finally we broke below, retested it as resistance, and have sold off since. So to see something where we fall from this level back to this trend line and then maybe up and start forming something like this until we get the massive breakout, I mean, that could be actually something that definitely could play out. So there's that trend line. I have a couple other ones drawn on my other chart. If we look at here, yeah, you can see on this one that I've drawn, we've had resistance, resistance, resistance. We broke above briefly, but then tested it as resistance again. We kind of have a ascending wedge here on the RSI with lots of touch points in between. And again, our support line along the bottom, if I was to extend this and bring it down a little bit more like this, you could see that we'd play right into this level. So definitely keep that in mind. It's going to be interesting what price comes down. But looking at this, draw some of these levels on your RSI, and whenever price gets to these points, we'll see what does in fact happen. Now, most importantly, we know that the trend, if it can't hold the weekly support here, we could be going down. So what are our levels of going down? We need price levels, and we need to know what are the levels of support to look for to buy in before we have our next rally up. So let's hop into that right now. Alright guys, so we are going to begin with the monthly Fibonacci levels on the monthly time frame, as we just had our monthly close at an extremely important level around the 786, around $367, and I've actually been calling this as a key level. I'll show you guys a post that I actually posted on Instagram about this $367 level being a key level of confluence. Because I mean, even just looking at the chart right now, we can see a few things. First of all, it was a key resistant point back here in 2017, and pretty much all throughout the data that we have for Ethereum, you can see where this price level played out yet. We also wicked up exactly to this level before selling off again. And then we went all the way to our all-time high whenever we broke this level. Now, the other thing to keep in mind, whenever we fell from our all-time high, We created it as support. It was old resistance flipped into new support, and I mean we rallied almost 130% after that. And then after that happened, we closed back below it. And then in June of 2019, we came up and topped out exactly at this $367 level as our macro resistance point before selling off all the way again to the bottom here. And then just recently, we had our monthly September close, and the close was at $359.94, so almost exactly $360, and which means we closed below it because our 786 is at $367. And then what's happened on our monthly candle so far? We've went back up to test it. Our high was around 369, and we've sold off ever since. So this level is still holding extreme resistance right now. We definitely will have to come down to find a better support level, in my opinion. It doesn't have to happen, but with a high probability of certainty, we'll come down somewhere around this level. Even look at that on a monthly time frame. I think we could see a wick all the way down to the $230 level, which is again exactly what I've been talking about for a very long time too. And even at the beginning of the video, I outlined this key $230 level because you can see it was our 2 monthly candle closes for May and June before we had the blast off. So to test this old resistance as new support on the monthly would be an absolutely insane blast off point. And let's say if that was to occur and we take it from the high all the way to the support, if we do find it, I mean, look at our 1.618, exactly in between our 618 and our 0.5 on the monthly. The 0.2618 is exactly in confluence with the 0.382 monthly fib level. The 3.618 and 2.3 or point, excuse me, I'm sorry, 0.236 fib level are both in confluence, and then of course we have our 4.236 almost exactly at the high. So this looks like it could definitely be a scenario to play out. And I mean, if that did happen to our first level, would be about 180% rise to the upside. All right, guys. So now we switched it over to the weekly time frame, and taking this thing from top to bottom, we need to look at some of our current main levels. And if we're looking for a buy-in point, I mean, this is the golden zone. I'm just going to say right now, anywhere really between $290 and $230. If you get a chance to buy Ethereum in that price range, even if it goes lower, do not miss out. This is the golden zone right now. This is where you're going to want to be buying. So remember, this is not financial advice, but if you guys do your own charting and your own analysis and you agree with me that this is going to be a key level to hold, then I highly recommend that this would be the buying point. But just keep these two levels in mind because they are going to play more confluence as we look at a couple different key fib levels. So our next one on the weekly would be from our high back in February all the way to our low in March, where we went from 289 all the way down to $90. And I mean, look at exactly where our 1.618 was for this move. Let me bring it back to the low, and right there around $414, which if you can see, look, our 786 around 246. We're holding all the weekly candle bodies as resistance before finally we broke above and came all the way to the 1.618 before finding sell pressure and then eventually moving higher. But why is this level so important? So I actually called this level too. Between 390 and 420, I said would be an extremely strong resistance zone. So to have that 1.618 exactly there, almost where we topped out, because I mean, even if I was to zoom in on the daily time frames, you can see that in a single daily candle, immediately once we went up to this level on the 1.618, and again, I'm going to pop up on the screen exactly on my Instagram where I called we were in this level and selling off at the current time, just for you guys to see. Whenever we went right into my resistance box and sold off, we touched this 1.618 exactly And in a single day, we went from 415 all the way down to $325. So we know that was a crucial level. And look, old resistance flipped into new support for a little bit, before honestly we had this pattern, which I also called on the daily, where we had this trend line and we were topping out exactly at this trend line, which again, I'll pull up on the screen right now. I said exactly when we were finding the sell pressure and holding the daily candle below this level, and we ended up having a huge drop down. I mean, from this trend line where we were calling our resistance at, we had almost a 36% drop to the downside. Absolutely crazy. But now that we're on the 1 day time frame, instead of just looking at fib levels, I want to point out a few key trend lines, as well as the breakout point right here that we were also calling, which I will show you the Instagram post of that in just a minute. But let's start out by looking at this like this. So the first thing that we see is, let's look at a few of the key support and resistance flips. So the first level you can clearly see is about right here, where after we had our coronavirus dump all the way down to about $88, we rallied up, made our first high at around $153, sold off, and then eventually this old resistance was flipped into new support right here, as you can see. So now, the interesting thing about this, we know that this 150 is a key level on the daily time frame. So after we use this as support, let's go from our high that we created at, it looks like, the $230 level. Before I actually do this, let me just outline this for you guys. So after we came from the $150 level, we went exactly to our $230 level that we've been saying is so extremely important. And then again, look, you can see it was old resistance flipped into new support before we had the major blast off. But just an example, whenever we ran up from 150 all the way to 230, if we look at the fib levels for this and put it at the candle bodies and extend this out, we can even do the wicks, which is about right here. And let's just go down to the wicks for fun. And look at that. Oh my goodness. Would you look at that? All the way to the 4.236 was our exact top at around $485 too, in confluence with that fib level. Absolutely crazy. Now, let's take a look at the other ones too, because they each play a role, and keep these levels in mind. Again, we have around the $280 level that we've been talking about. You can see the confluence we had within these candles. We have the 350 level right here, which again has been major confluence with Ethereum's price action. The 3.618 around $440, which was our original resistance before we went higher, exactly to the 4.236, right at that $490 range. So the next support and resistance flip we need to look at is, let's see, probably, we could say, I think this is probably the most key level that we see from here. Actually, there's 3 levels. This would be the second one. You can see how it was resistance, again, flipped into support with the final low before we had a run up. So this is going to be very important too. And I guarantee you, if we take it from our high of 250, bring it to that low, and extend it out, I mean, you can see exactly how those fib levels played again too. Our 4.236 almost exactly at the top. The 3.618 at 454 was almost exactly our first resistance. You can see how our 2.36 around 380 was our support level all along here before we finally broke it. We even tried, if I extend this even a little bit more, we even tried holding it here and even here, but now that 380 level, as well as our 370 level, which remember is the 786 on our monthly, has been holding resistance. So kind of crazy to see all these levels play out. And again, our 1.618 is at 300. Also, I'll be showing you where I pointed out that our 1.618 was originally at 300 on our Instagram, and you can see I was already assuming these fib levels were the ones that were going to play out, and I mean, it played out perfectly. So again, we'll see if my predictions about our price levels dropping into the 230 to 280 range will play out. But again, finally, the last major point would be about right here. You can even see the confluence back at our high of 290, where it was support, support again, flipped into resistance right here, the sell point right here, the sell point right here, and then we broke above it and flipped it into support again with this wick, and then this wick being the final low before we had our run to the upside. And just going from the bottom here to the top here, would you look at that? Look at these fib levels. I mean, so clear and precise. And look at that, we had a perfect daily close exactly at that 618 level around 320. And look at where our 786 is, right here around the $270 level. So if we were to close a daily candle below $320 for Ethereum, you better believe we're going down to the 270 level almost for sure. Now remember guys, nothing is ever for sure in trading, but with a high probability of certainty, this would be our next level to look at. And I mean, we can see all the confluence we had with our breakout point. Even without using fib levels, let's just outline where we were in this ascending triangle here, which we again pointed out on our Instagram. I will pull that up on the screen for you guys. And we had something like this, we could say, as our bottom trend line of support with a flat line of resistance on the top. We're going to draw at the candle bodies there. And you can see we're in this perfectly symmetrical triangle. And let's just look at our breakout points. Again, from this high to this low, I mean, it called the top exactly almost. I mean, look at that. A perfect top at the 236 from our top of our ascending triangle here to our very last macro low before the run up. Absolutely perfect. And you guys, I was literally calling this breakout whenever we broke the $250 level. Here it is on the screen right now. First off, called the breakout right whenever Ethereum was breaking $250. I also called that Bitcoin would break above $9,400. Ethereum actually led the move for Bitcoin in this particular instance, breaking out of this triangle. And I even said right here that it would finally break Bitcoin above 9,400. And look at what happened. It broke Bitcoin above 9,400. Bitcoin went to 12,500, and Ethereum went from $250 all the way up to about $490. Perfect. So if you're looking at this from just a technical standpoint, I mean, where would we most likely go here? Well, if we look at all these support and resistance flips, right now, this trend line, and let's make this a different color just so we know what we're talking about, is old resistance. And before this rally to the upside really can begin, this major trend line that we've had throughout pretty much all time for Ethereum at this key level of $250 needs to be flipped into new support on the daily time frame to continue our run to the upside. And from our current price, that would be another 30% drop to the downside. I mean, from our high, I guarantee you this is almost a 50% drop from our high. Oh my gosh, look at that. Almost exactly a 50% drop from our high. You can't make this guys up. This would be a perfect sell-off and buy point to start the next run-up to the upside. After selling out 50%, to 61.8% is how these market movers do it, and then they move it all the way up to 423.6%, which is absolutely what we could see. Just for example, if we use this line, let's just say on a macro scale, what would be our target to look for in the future? Look at that, our 4.236 at 1,265 almost exactly at our high, just like look at where our 3.618 is. Exactly at the candle body closes of this. Our 2.618 around $870, just like how we mentioned in the beginning of the video, and our 1.618 at $637, which would be our first price target in the 600s that we've been talking about too. I mean, if this is the move to happen, then you can guarantee, this would be the blast off point for the bull run for Ethereum. If the bulls come in at this level and can hold anywhere between the $230 to $280 level, these are the price targets that we want to look for almost for sure. Now, before we close the video, one last thing that I want to point out is the historical volatility index. And let me exit out of this and let me go to the weekly time frame and add the HV on here. And boom. Okay, so this is the historical volatility index, and this basically shows you whenever price is consolidating and just trading sideways versus whenever we're having volatile moves to the upside or to the downside. And I laid this out very well on my Instagram with outlining the key points on the historical volatility index to look out for whenever we are going to have the big moves, and how they played confluence exactly at the same time that price action was making its moves. So you can see it's a very key indicator. And now there's a very key point on this historical volatility index, and that is around a 47 here. So let me make this black so it's a bit easier to see down here. And anytime the historical volatility index dips down to a 47, we know we are about to have a massive move. And you can go check my Instagram post so you can see exactly the times we hit this 47 level for Ethereum and blast off. And right here in the zone, let me just outline this for you guys here. Literally right here in this zone, we were consolidating at between 250 and 210 basically. I was pointing out how right here we were again on the historical volatility index touching that 47, and how we were going to have a massive move to the upside. And guys, I mean, again, look at that, played out perfectly, about over 100% move to the upside after touching that historical volatility index. And look what we're doing right now, guys. We're creating another kind of consolidation level in price action here, with the volatility declining, because, again, we're trading sideways and we're just consolidating with price action. And it looks like the volatility index could come back down to test this level again before we have our next major run to the upside or to the downside. So with that being said, guys, I hope you enjoyed this Ethereum video. I hope you guys learned something. I hope you see some of the key levels playing out in the chart right now. And one last thing before we close, best for last. Hopefully you guys have stuck around this long in the video, because this is so very important. You can see that I've outlined this symmetrical triangle pattern that we have drawn, just almost like the same 952-day downtrend we've drawn for Bitcoin before we finally broke out. You can see, obviously, this wasn't a trend line from Ethereum's high, but it is an important trend line. And just like how Bitcoin can come down and retest its final trend line of support, Ethereum doing the same. I mean, that would bring it down exactly back into, the 230, 240 range as a retest before the actual bull market for Bitcoin and Ethereum actually begin. And we can know this because of one specific trend, and it's this trend right here. Because of this trend that we had outlined, even with the key levels, right here, as our old resistance flipped into new support and then reflipped into resistance again. The bottom being that 0.786 on the monthly, around $367. It's given us an extremely key trend that I think is going to play a huge role in Ethereum's 2020 to 2021 move to the upside. And if we draw a fib level from bottom to top, we can see right where our 1.618 is and the confluence that it had. And I mean, look at that. Our 1.618 of these trend moves right here called our bottom exactly around $90. And if we extend this even further, you can see that our 0.786, where we made our high around 490, we wicked up exactly to it and candle closed below it, just like all these candles did before we had the drop all the way down to the 1.618. So looking at these key levels, we'd see that the next run up would most likely bring us into this range around 600 to 650, which throughout this whole video, you guys know that I've been mentioning this level as being our next run up point. So it's definitely something super important to watch for what happens in this range. And you know, if we create some kind of Elliott wave pattern where this would be our A, and then we come down to have the retest of this trend line as support for our B, and then our C move comes up here into this exact box around this key level that we've been talking about, and then our D would be the support, right, or the old resistance turning into new support, and then our E would bring us all the way up here, and that's around $1,100, and I believe that that is actually the candle close on the monthly. Wow, yes, look at that. Oh my gosh, exactly our candle close on the monthly. So yeah, we could see if Ethereum is really starting its bull run here, and it plays out an Elliott wave pattern, then I mean coming back up to this level would not be out of the question at all for Ethereum. The other thing that we want to look at, we looked at the one for the bottom 618. Now we need to look at what the 1.618 would be for the top move and see if that still has confluence as well. So if we go from top to bottom here, and look at where the 1.618 is. Exactly at 1,118. Again, we still have this line drawn at our monthly close. You can see how close that level is. And if we were to come to the 2.618, that's around $1,600, we would be creating a new high for Ethereum and going even higher. So with that being said, I'm going to wrap up today's video. I've outlined most of the points to the downside and most of the price targets to the upside. So I hope that gives you a better perspective of trading this market, as Bitcoin and Ethereum are about to make crucial and extremely important moves in the next couple weeks, 2 months. So stay tuned with this channel, subscribe, leave a like, leave a comment. Down in the comments, put if you want any altcoins, if you want me to do any analysis over any altcoins, just leave the name of the altcoin you want me to do an analysis video over in the comments, and I'll try to get to it. And with that being said, I will see you guys in the next video.